There is another story on The Australian that relates to those very people, and this is a story about GetUp. The story says GetUp uses child to Labor point, an exclusive story here by Jeff Chambers and Rosie Lewis. This story says GetUp is using a 12-year-old girl to raise money for a national advertising campaign supporting the global climate strike, which is urging students and workers to take the day off and demand an end to the age of fossil fuels. Terry, what do you think about this idea that perhaps a 12-year-old is being rolled out to sell this idea that every school kid should take the day off and protest next Friday at this global climate strike?
Well, I certainly think that children are allowed to have political opinions of their own, but to encourage them to strike, to give wag school to do it, I don't think is what it's all about. And for GetUp to do that, and to actually use a 12-year-old kid as a poster girl for their campaign, I think is wrong. I think it's sending the wrong message to children in terms of their own responsibilities. It's sending the wrong message to the community as a whole. I mean, one of the things that really bugs me about protest when you see them, and it doesn't matter what it's for, is when adults actually bring their children along as props to hold up placards and get the cameras to focus on them. I just think these types of stunts should actually leave children alone.
Yeah, I reckon that's a really good point that you make. I don't think, Caleb, I don't think anyone would have an issue if kids want to go out and protest for a cause that they really believe in. I think that most people would agree with that and say that's okay. I think Terry makes a really good point, though, doesn't he, when he talks about these parents that you see dragging their kids along to these protests and holding up these signs, saying you must do this, you must do that. And you've got to wonder, when you see kids who are sort of 7 and 8 years old holding up these signs, whether, they really are old enough to have been able to form a firm view one way or the other on any of these issues.
Definitely. I think there is a tendency sometimes to use kids for political gain, and politicians do it too. I mean, they parade their kids around to show how much of a great family man they are, but they get their kids to hand out the how to vote cards and all this kind of thing. And really, kids probably don't know what's going on there. And I'm the last person who would say that kids can't have their own political opinions, because God knows I did. And I knew from a very young age.
You've got your own column, Caleb.
I know. At the age of 15, I started writing, and I knew from a young age, sort of what I was thinking and the fact that I was politically interested. But what GetUp is doing here, and using a 12-year-old, I think, is slightly too young. 14, 15, 16 perhaps would be okay, but using a 12-year-old is appealing purely to the emotional side of things. I mean, it's not putting forward any great argument or any logical argument. It's saying, here's a kid, feel sorry for a kid, give us $12 so we can put an ad on television. And by the way, because one kid says it's okay to strike from school, it must be okay. I don't think this is the right way to go about it. Sure, you can debate climate change and the fact that you want things to be done, but walking out of school when you could actually be gaining knowledge on things like climate change to go and rally on the steps of Parliament, I don't think is going to do very much for anyone.